They sit across me for the very first time, a new patient. I know we're about to open the door to their childhood, and as I prepare to ask the question, I get this familiar constricting feeling in my chest. I am bracing myself for their answer, and then there it is. Oh, I had a beautiful childhood. It was almost perfect. My heart sinks. My immediate internal reaction is a silent face slap, because the more ignorant a person is about the difficulties they faced in their childhood, the more brutal the work will be to help them see the bare truth before we can even attempt to heal them. Because if you don't even know there is a problem, it is impossible to start the work. So in this video, we're going to expose the illusion of the perfect childhood, and we will explore how your hidden relationship with your parents is directly linked to your anxiety and your bank account, and why your perfectionism is actually a primal survival reflex, and how understanding the architecture of your BaZi chart and intervening with acupuncture, the karmic kind of acupuncture, can help you transform the demon in your nest into your ultimate superpower. In our previous video, we discussed the year pillar, the ancestral luggage, the transgenerational dynamics, and the hidden ghosts of your lineage. But today we move to the month pillar. We're zooming in on your childhood, your parents, and the very overt dynamics of your early home. If your ancestors are the ghosts, the month pillar is the demon in the nest. And let me assure you, the demon in the nest makes the ancestral luggage pale in comparison to the potential negativity it can unleash upon your life. Your childhood is the bedrock of your bearings of normality, so because you have nothing else to contrast it with, it is incredibly easy to adopt a distorted image of how nourishing and rosy it actually was. But if you don't understand how deeply you are limited in the here and now as an adult by what happened in the then and there as a child, you will be forever condemned to live out scenarios that are not yours. We cannot be objective about our own childhood, so let's bypass your memories and go straight to your somatic reality to diagnose exactly where your home archetype was injured. So, when we think of home, the first concept that comes to mind is stability. So ask yourself, what is the opposite of stability? Instability, right? And what is the emotional symptom of instability? Anxiety. So if you suffer from anxiety, it is a direct consequence of a home environment that was not perceived as safe. That stability could have broken down anywhere. In your relationship with your mother, your father, the dynamic between them, or even in the circumstances your family was enduring. But the equation is absolute. If you have chronic anxiety, there was a stability fracture in your nest. What else do we expect from home? Love and warmth. Again, look at the evidence of your self-love. When someone points a camera at you, do you cringe and hide? Or conversely, do you always crave to be front and center, overtly screaming to be seen because you were completely, maybe, invisible as a child? Both extremes are glaring symptoms of a validation wound. We're seeing a generation obsessed with gentle parenting, showering children with the boundaryless love they themselves never received. But love without boundaries is just as toxic as neglect. If you weren't taught boundaries as a child, you will lack self-discipline as an adult. And you will raise the narcissists of tomorrow because you do not know how to set those boundaries. Let's look at the mother archetype specifically. The mother is our first source of physical nourishment. How is your relationship with food? Do you overeat? Or are you overly picky? Do you suffer from bloating, loose stools, cravings for sweets, or food intolerances? Do you have weight fluctuations? These physical earth element imbalances are deeply linked to the emotional nourishment you did or did not receive from the maternal archetype. And then there is the question of validation. Are you worthy? Worthy of what? Worthy of taking up space. Worthy of having a voice. Worthy of wealth. If your default reflex when something goes wrong is instantly, it's my fault, you have a profound validation wound. This is an evolutionary survival reflex. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, if a child perceived their parents were distant, they went into panic mode. The child assumed, if I appease them, if I blame myself, if I become perfect, maybe they won't abandon me. Your perfectionism is a primal survival tactic from a child terrified of losing the nest. This lack of validation directly dictates your reality. You will never receive more from life than what your nervous system believes you are worth. I've seen people encounter a partner who is absolute gold, showering them in affection and resources, and they completely self-sabotage because it feels too good to be true. It feels very distant from what they received. Receiving love does not compute with their childhood conditioning, so, they hit the brakes, retreating to maybe decades-long, critical, unfulfilling relationships. Why? Because that familiar misery matches what they think they deserve. But on a deeper, darker level, this is a hidden loyalty to their parents. It is a loyalty to the exact limitations their caregivers handed them. Subconsciously, by refusing a better life, they are being the appeasing child, saying, "Yes, mother. Yes, father. I will not ask for more than what you gave me." Let that sink in. Finally, your parents were your first models of sexual polarity. How masculine did your father know how to be around your mother? Did your mother know how to be receptive and feminine and flirtatious? Or was she just frustrated and distant? Because a cratered feminine archetype can manifest physically as severe menstrual dysfunction, for example. A boy who is constantly belittled in childhood should not be surprised when he faces erectile dysfunction as an adult. So, looking at this immense emotional burden, you might ask, why wasn't I given a blank slate? Why was I cast into this deeply flawed family? It is easy to fall into hatred, but hating your parents is a failure on multiple fronts. Psychologically, a massive part of your identity is merged with them. So, to paraphrase the Buddha, hating someone is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. So when you attack your parents, you're actively attacking a part of yourself. Another trap is passing the blame. As a child, you were helpless. As an adult, passing responsibility strips you of your power. Life was never supposed to be a condemnation to suffering. And you're not supposed to be the passive recipient of trauma. To borrow the wisdom of Gandalf from The Lord of the Rings, all we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us. And a lifetime is plenty of time to turn this around. Think of a cinematic masterpiece. Have you ever watched a great film without a terrifying antagonist? We expect a strong oppositional force. We expect the hero to be pushed to their absolute limits, to undergo a symbolic death, to be reborn. So if you look at your life struggles from the perspective of a viewer in the cinema, the climax of the story, the moment you face your biggest demons, when you're at your lowest, confused, is the most electrifying part of the film. Your soul is avidly looking for that fight. Your soul sought out this exact lineage to learn how to conquer this specific demon. The trauma is not the end of your story. It is simply the inciting incident of your hero's journey. But if you're going to fight a demon, you need to know exactly what it looks like. You need to know its shape, its weapons, and exactly where it hides in your life. You cannot defeat an invisible enemy. So this is precisely why we need the ancient architecture of Chinese astrology. It provides the literal map of your battlefield. In your BaZi chart, the month pillar represents your parents and your childhood conditioning, and it is the main source of energy in your entire chart. And because it is heavily polarized, it is also the root cause of your chart's energetic imbalance. So simply put, your month pillar is the root of your suffering. But because it is the heaviest energy, it is also your single biggest life lesson. You cannot avoid it. You have to learn to wield its power if you want to be happy. So we can see how this demon operates by looking at the month pillar and how it clashes with the rest of your life. So for example, month versus year pillar, right? Did your parents mediate a healthy relationship between you and the outside world? Or did they unknowingly make you feel like an alien? Take the month versus the day pillar. The day pillar is your spouse palace. A clash here means the hidden models you observed between your parents are actively, subconsciously destroying the intimacy in your current marriage or relationship. Month versus hour pillar. The hour pillar holds your aspirations. A clash here is the metaphysical definition and bedrock of depression. It means your childhood conditioning is actively at war with everything you stand for. You might be sitting there now feeling crushed by the weight of this inheritance. But I want you to hear me clearly. You're not doomed to this architecture. You're not a prisoner. You're not a helpless prisoner locked inside a broken nest. The entire purpose of identifying these wounds is not to resign yourself to them, but to intervene, to act. The heavy energy of your month pillar is a raw, unrefined power source, and you have the absolute capability to reshape it. We use the BaZi chart to understand, but we use Karmic Acupuncture to intervene, to correct, and to heal. So through Karmic Acupuncture, we physically and energetically restructure these broken archetypes. We cultivate the earth element to restore your digestive capacity, to conquer your anxiety, to build the unshakable self-esteem required to draw healthy boundaries. Simultaneously, we cultivate the metal element. This restores your inner authority and gives you the validation that you're inherently worthy of receiving everything life has to offer. So, completing the earth and metal dynamic finishes the first cycle of your evolutionary path. It frees you from the chains of your nest. When we talk about the nest, we naturally focus heavily on the mother. She's the first caregiver, the source of nourishment, but we must address the other half of this equation as well. We must talk about the father. The father's role in childhood is often much more elusive to people, but his absence is just as lethal. In 1972, medical science coined a term for a massive discovery: apoptosis. It refers to programmed cellular death. Scientists realized that cells, under certain circumstances, are biologically programmed to quietly destroy themselves for the greater good of the organism. But what we see on a cellular level, we can also experience on a soul level. The Father does not just give you validation, he symbolically gives you the systemic right to exist. If we do not receive that profound permission from the Father archetype, it triggers a subconscious systemic drive to self-destruct. So, prepare yourself for our next masterclass, because in there we're going to explore the apoptosis of the soul. I'll see you there.